What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today I'm bringing to you the first of a series of circuit experience guides on GT7. This first one will be covering Lake Maggiore and the Alfa Romeo 4C. I figured this would be a good one to cover to go along with my 1-hour endurance mission guide for this track in case you're looking for a bit more pace to get gold on that. So I'll link that guide in the description in case you haven't seen it yet. Before we get started, if you find guides like these helpful, please leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. With that being said, let's get started. At the start of the lap, we're coming up to turn 1 at just over 150 miles an hour, and you need to look out for the second sign over the track after the start-finish line for a braking point. You'll want to brake right after you pass it, but make sure you don't brake too late and compromise your corner entry. You can also use the fence on the outside, but you'll need to brake before it ends or you'll be too late. Turn in right where that green wall on the outside ends, downshift to third gear, and you should end up on the very inside of this curb into turn 1. Second gear helps slow you down more, but I found third gear more effective in maintaining speed into turn 2. The way this corner is set up, you actually want to exit farther to the right rather than setting up for the exit like a typical chicane. Once you clear the curb, you'll want to ease back to full throttle for just a small moment before braking again, right as you near the end of this white patch in the grass. It's important to get this braking zone right, because if you're too early, you'll turn into the grass, and if you're too late, then you'll take a wider line, which is slower here. As you enter turn 2, drop it into first gear to get more rotation and really abuse the yellow pavement on the inside of the corner. You can get as close to the grass as you want as long as you don't touch it, but I prefer to leave a little bit of room there so I can tighten my turning radius later and exit the corner tighter. Once you're about halfway through the corner, shift back up to second gear and start easing on the power slowly to exit to the left side of the track. Don't get greedy on the throttle here or you'll spin the tires and lose a lot of time through the next sector. As long as you're not completely full throttle before you clear that curb, you should be alright. For this next corner, you can go outside this white line here to set up more for the entry, but be careful not to go too far because there's a big bump there that will throw you off the line and ruin your lap. I suggest keeping your left tires right next to the line just to be safe. From here, start turning in where the lines cross, and just a bit of a lift will get you to the left-hand curb. Then try not to take the curb exit too tight on the setup or the rear end will jump and upset the car. For this next corner, there are multiple approaches. I like using the yellow markers even though I don't strictly follow them, and I use this one as a relative braking marker. I brake a car length or so before it. If you don't use these, you can also use these proxies signs here on the left. As you brake, you'll want to trail brake a bit and get to the curb on the inside without touching the big orange one. If you need more rotation to get there, try dropping to second gear and then putting it back in third before you start applying throttle. You can apply throttle pretty early here in third gear on this tight line, and you should end up with your left wheels on the curb here on exit. Coming into this fast right-hander, look out for this gray strip on the left. I try to pitch the car to the right a tiny bit before braking to prepare for the corner, and then I brake right after I pass that strip. From there, I keep the car a bit more towards the middle of the track rather than staying fully outside for the entry. This corner is cambered more in the middle, so you can carry similar speeds through the middle of the track while covering less distance, so it's usually faster. Manage your turn in so you just clip the inside curb on the apex, again without touching the orange curb. Once you get to the curb, you can start applying throttle in third gear and track out to the exit curb on the left. There's a lot of grip on this exit, so you can be pretty aggressive with the throttle compared to other corners. Now comes what, in my opinion, is the most important sector of the track. The speed you carry through here can make or break your lap, because there's a very long straight out of this section. I shift up to 5th, even though it's not totally necessary for straight line speed, but the downshift to 4th promotes a bit more turn in here, so I like having that as an option. I like to get the right tires on this curb and brake right at the midpoint of it, and then turn in so that you hit this barren patch of grass right as you get on the inside curb. Maintenance throttle here is key, so give it just enough throttle to where it won't oversteer or get into the grass. You'll want to exit that first left-hander towards the middle of the track so you can set up for the rest, so use that to get an idea of how much throttle you need. In the right-hander, I use as much track as possible, even going over the white lines, to get a better setup for the next left. That corner is the last one before the long straight, so your exit speed needs to be maximized there. I use a bit of the sausage curbs on the inside to buy myself as much room on exit as possible, and I do a tiny safety lift here just to make sure I don't understeer off the track. After that, I use every inch of track available on the exit, and with a close call next to the grass, we're out of the sector carrying a lot of speed. This sector can be very frustrating because of how precise you need to be to get it right, so just keep practicing it and learn to commit to the throttle for the exit. Down into the hairpin, I brake hard right after the 50-meter board. From here, I downshift to third gear and start turning in right as the curb on the left side ends. If you get the right balance here, you'll end up on the inside of the curb, and you can actually go over the sausage curbs here again if you're at a sharp enough angle. If you hit them with your car pointed more to the left than this, they may spit you out onto the gravel trap and ruin your lap. On this line though, you can actually start feeding throttle back in early, and the car will pull itself around for the exit on the left side curb. The rear weight transfer from throttling also helps the front end lift a tiny bit just to clear those sausage curbs on the inside. Once you exit the hairpin and track out to the left, these next couple of corners will be full throttle as long as you're set up on the proper line like so. Stay close to every entry and exit curb, but don't try to abuse them or they'll throw the car off the line and you'll most likely go off track. For this next corner, I look at the Marshall stand on the left and I brake right after I pass it. Then I downshift to third gear and try to apex right on the flatter portion of the curb on the inside, and I'm pretty early on the throttle at this point. I start feeding in half throttle right before that barren patch of grass on the inside ends, and then I track out far to the left. This next corner can be tricky though. You'll want to start turning in as the left curb ends, but you don't want to commit fully to turning right away, or you'll end up in the grass or just have a really poor exit. You can tap the brakes a tiny bit to pitch the car for this corner, or if you're able to get away with being aggressive enough to slide the car a tiny bit like I did here, then you can get away with just a long lift here. Again, use all the track you can and use the curbs both on the apex and the exit here. Start feeding throttle in about halfway through the barren patch on the right, and then track out left on the exit curb. Into the final corner, set up on the curb a little bit and brake a car length or two before it ends, and then downshift to fourth gear. I braked a bit too late here as I'd prefer to end up closer to the inside curb, but the really important factor here is early throttle application. You can start to apply throttle right when this small cutaway in the inside curb starts, but pay attention to how you apply throttle, because this car tends to understeer on this exit and you don't want to go off track and invalidate your lap. On the exit, you can use the pavement on the right if needed, but try to minimize how much you touch the grass before reaching it if you go out this far. Ideally, you'll just miss the grass and not touch it at all. From here, it's full throttle to the line, and that's a complete lap of the Lake Maggiore circuit, with our final time being a 155.493, just barely 3 seconds clear of the gold time. I hope this guide helped highlight some places where you can gain some time on this track. This circuit experience can be pretty tricky, but once you learn the ins and outs of the track, you should be able to gold this with no problems. If this guide helps you improve your time, post your personal best down in the comments. But that's all I've got for this time, guys. As always, if you found this video helpful, please leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Thanks.